Yo, what is up? So in this tutorial, we're going to set up a little bit of a light switch system and just kind of make a light blueprint. So we have a light switch here, and what we can do with it is I can turn this guy on or off in the editor, and it'll affect the light that we have connected to it. You could choose what light you want to turn on or off. You could also add multiple lights. So let's say I wanted it to affect more than one. Right now, it only has the one connected to it, so if I turn it off, it only affects the one. But if I add this one to it, it will affect both of them. And, here, let me get rid of that. Delete. And you can also come in here and just turn these off individually. And you can also choose what kind of light you want this to be. So we have rect light, spotlight, and point light. And you can also come in here and actually interact with it. You'll see the switch will animate and it'll actually turn on or off the light that is connected to it. And yeah, let's hop into it. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to hop into our models folder and we're going to bring in our light switch model. We're just going to make a new folder in here called light switch. We're going to open this guy up and I'm going to bring in my model. I left a link in the description for anyone who wants the model to this. So yeah, you can just grab that and let me find it here. Put it in this one. Just import this guy. And you see, we have our light switch here. But now we need to make the material to it. So I'm going to also bring in the textures I made for this. So let me bring those in right here. Just import these guys. And same as always, we need to change some settings on these textures. So I'm going to open this guy up, the ARH. And we're going to make this guy 1024. We're also going to change compression settings to masks. Save that guy and close it. Then we're going to go into the base color here. And I'm going to make this 2048. Save that guy, close it. And the MSE here, there's like not really anything going on here, so I'm just going to bump this one down to 64. That way it's not really taking up many resources. And the normal here, also not really much going on here, so I'm going to also bump this guy down pretty low. I'll bump it down to 512. And we'll save that guy. Let me also... The MSE, we also need to change this to mask. Change that to a mask. And now we need to make our materials, so let's go to our first person folder, materials, and right here on the master, we're going to right click, create material instance. We're going to call this mi_light switch. And I'm going to pull this guy into the light switch folder here. And I'm going to open this guy. And we're going to go into the color here, take all of these. We're going to take use ARH. We're also going to take use MSE. And we're just going to bring in our textures here. So just pull the base color in there, the normal right here. Take these guys. We're going to pull in the ARH right here. And the MSE right there. Just save that guy. And then I'm just going to open up each of these meshes here and pull the material in on these. So pull it in on that piece, save it, pull it in on this one, save it, pull it in on this guy right here, and save it. And we have our light switch. I made it kind of dirty. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is we're going to go ahead and merge all the pieces that isn't the actual switch part here, because we're going to animate this part and make it rotate. So we don't want that to be a part of the merged mesh. So we're going to select everything else. We got our big base piece here, and I believe just that little tiny piece in the middle. Oh, we actually have those screws as well. So select those. And we'll leave that middle switch part to itself. And then we're going to go up here to actor. And we're going to go to merge actors, merge actor settings. I'm going to replace source actors, merge actors, go into our first person folder, models, light switch. And we're going to call this light switch base. And close that guy. And I'm going to actually open this guy up. I'm going to remove collision, and I'm just going to add a box simplified collision. I'm also going to enable nanite, apply settings, save, close. And now that should be good to go. So now we need to make our blueprint for this. I'm also going to pull up my references here, kind of keep track of where we are. We can go ahead and make a we need to add light switches to our item type enum, so we can go and do that first. So go into your blueprint folder, enums, item types, and we're just going to add an enum. We're going to call this light switch. Save that guy, close it, save all. And since we changed that enum, we need to go into our base item and compile it. So just open that guy, compile it, save, close it. And we never put our keypad into a folder, so let's do that real quick. So in our items folder here, let's make a new folder called keypads. And we're just gonna move, oh whoops, not copy. We're just gonna move that guy in there. Base keypad, it made a copy. Hold on, let me delete this. Force delete. Move that guy in there. Cool. Alright, so now let me get rid of this picture here because we're done with that part. Alright, so next thing is we're going to create our blueprint for our light switch. So just right click on our base item here. Create child blueprint. We're going to call this BP underscore base light switch. And we're going to open this guy up. And we have quite a bit to do in here, but the first thing we're going to do is add this to our data table. So let's go to our first person data tables item info here. We're going to add a row, hit F2 to change the name. We're going to call this base light switch. Save that guy. Item class is going to be our base light switch here. Static mesh is going to be our base light switch base here. Item name is going to be base light switch. Item description, this is going to be, this is our setup for a base light switch. Item type is going to be a, looks like our item type name did not save, so let's go fix that real quick. Item type light switch. Save that, close that. Now I need to go recompile our base item, so let me do that real quick. Compile, save, close that guy. Alright, so item type is going to be light switch. Item name, we're not going to do that. Pickup sound, gonna actually make a sound for this real quick. So I'm just gonna go into my pack. I have a pack that let me see what sounds I used. User interface general click. So let me just look for click. General click. These three, I'm gonna use these, so I'm just gonna actually find these right here. I'm gonna make a queue, and I'm gonna call this light switch underscore queue, and I'm just gonna look for switch now. Open this guy up, and I'm gonna pull this guy over, and I'm gonna get a random. So we can choose some random sounds. I'm also going to pull off of this guy and get a modulator. plug that into the output, highlight everything, press Q. Now I'm just gonna click on this guy and hit the search button so I can get back to the sound class that we were using, or the sound wave. And I'm gonna grab the next two right here. You can use whatever sound you want. These are the ones that I'm using. I'm gonna add an input, pull this guy in here. And now if we press space, that is working. Alright, so now I'm just gonna search for my light switch Q again, go back to our data table, and I'm gonna set that into the pickup sound. We probably should rename that to interact sound, but it doesn't really matter. Alright, so now we can close our data table. We can close this queue. And also get rid of this picture because I'm done with that. Next thing we're gonna need is we need another enum we're gonna make called light types. So let's do that real quick. So let's go to our first person folder, blueprint, enums, right click. We're gonna go to blueprint, enumeration. We're gonna call this e_light type. And we're gonna open this guy up, add an enum. First one is gonna be none. Next one is gonna be a point light. Next one is gonna be a spot light. The next one is gonna be a rect light. We can just save that and close it. So cool. And done with that picture, so I can get rid of it. So we're also gonna need an interface. So we can go ahead and make this. We're gonna have two functions in it: turn on lights, turn off lights. So go to first person, blueprint, interfaces. We're gonna right click, go to blueprint. We're gonna make a blueprint interface. We're gonna call this BPI underscore lights, I think is what I named it. Let me see. Yeah, BPI lights. And we're just gonna open this. We're gonna make a function called turn on lights. We're also gonna add a function called turn off lights. And I don't think I had any inputs or anything. Nope. Cool. So we can compile and save that guy. And I can delete that picture because we're done with it. Let's see what we got next. That is base light. We're not at that part yet. Base light. And base light. That's with interact. We're not quite there yet. I think we need this one. So in our construction script of our base light switch, we're gonna do some things. We also have a few variables to add right here. So let's add a variable called lights on. So let's go to our variables here. We're gonna add a boolean called lights on question mark. We're also gonna make this instance editable. We're also gonna add a variable called lights to effect. And we're gonna make a variable called lights to effect. This is gonna be an actor. Object reference. We're also gonna make this an array so that we can add a list of lights. So you can add more than one light that you want to affect if you want to. We're also gonna make this instance editable. So just tick that guy or the eyeball down here. And now we're gonna go into the construction script, and we have some things to do in here. Base light switch. Viewport. Actually, before we do that, let's go up here, and we're gonna go to item name, and we're gonna choose our base light switch. And you see we have our mesh here. But we also need to add our switch in the middle. So let's add a static mesh. And this is going to be switch. We're going to name that switch. And we're going to just search for switch cube 001, I think. Yeah, switch cube 001. We're also going to set the X rotation here to 30. So that way it's by default off, because our Boolean by default is off. So we're just going to have this off by default. And now we're going to go into the construction script. And we're going to get a branch and check if our light is on. So just press B on your keyboard and click. And we're just going to grab our lights on Boolean here. And so we want to grab our switch, grab this guy, and we want to set rotation, set relative rotation right here. Plug this into the true. We're going to right click on the new rotation here and split the struct, because we only really want to change one axis, which is the X. And for this one, we're going to make this -30. So if our light is on, we want this to be -30, which right now our light is off. And if you look here, our rotation is 30. So we need it to be the opposite of that for if our light is on. So we're just going to duplicate this guy, plug it into the false. And we're going to make the new rotation of the X here 30. And then we just want to grab our lights to effect. So lights to effect right here. And we're going to do a for each loop. Just grab for each loop. And we'll duplicate that because we're going to do this on both of these. And what we're going to do is we're basically just sending our message, so our turn on, turn off lights message. So off of the array element, we are going to pull off and turn on lights message. Just plug that guy in. And on here, we're going to pull off the array element and turn off lights message. And then we're going to compile and save. And now we can test out that this is changing our switch if we turn it on or off. So let's do that real quick. We can delete this mesh that's in here and actually bring in our light switch. I'm going to pull it over here on the wall. Pull this guy in. I'm just going to kind of hug it up on the wall like a light switch. Like that. And now if we turn on lights, we can see it will change whether the switch is on or off. So that's working. And we did that. The reason that's working is because we put that in the construction script. So anything in the construction script will run in the editor. So yeah, that's how the construction script works. Which is why we can turn it on or off here and it'll update. So the next thing we want to do is we're done with this part. So let's go to the next part, which is just check some things here. I think we're done with this. I don't need this picture. So next thing we need to do is we can go ahead and do our interact. Let me check the interact here. Let's see. That's not the interact. Our interact. Yeah, we can go ahead and do our interact. Yeah, we'll go ahead and do this part. So go into the event graph. And we're just going to double click on our interact here. And we're going to go ahead and set up what we do when we interact with this guy. So the first thing we want to do is we want to grab our item info. Get item info. And we're going to break this guy. And we're just going to right click and we're going to play sound. Play sound 2D. And the sound we're going to play is our pickup sound. Or interact sound, whatever you want to call it. And the reason we're doing this here, if you remember in our items, base items. We're already doing this here, but since we're implementing this interact here, this overrides anything we did in our parent class, at least with this. So that's why we're choosing to do this here. Also, we can click on this guy and we can hide unconnected pins. Clean it up a little bit. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to check if the light is on or off. So grab in our lights on boolean here. We're going to grab a branch, so press B and click. Plug this guy into the play sound 2D. And we're going to do something pretty much the same thing we did in our construction. We're going to do a for each loop, and then we're going to turn the light on or off, and then we're going to play we're gonna animate our switch. So pretty much what we did here, but we're also adding in a animation. So first thing is we can go ahead and grab our lights to effect. We're gonna get a for each loop and plug this into the true. And we can go ahead and duplicate that because it's also going to go into the false. And the next thing we want to do is we're just going to send our message. So the top one's going to be turn off lights, and then the bottom one's going to be turn on lights. So off the array element, we're going to turn off lights message, plug that into the loop body, and right here we're going to turn on lights message. Plug that guy in right there. And we're going to set our boolean. We're going to set our lights to be off right here. So lights on is false. And then just duplicate this guy. Plug this guy in. And we're going to set the lights to be on right there. And then the next thing we want to do is we're just going to animate. So I'm just going to copy the set relative rotation here. Plug this guy in. And we're going to make a timeline. We'll do the turn on first, so let's call this turn on. So we'll do the bottom one first. We're going to play from start. And our update is going to go into the set relative rotation. And what we're going to do in here is, let me look at my timeline. Yeah, so we're just going to add a float track called turn on rotation. So just double click this guy to open it. We're going to set the length to 0.2. Then we're going to add a float track. We're going to call this turn on rotation. And we're going to go on the timeline here and just shift click. The time is going to be 0. The value, this is for our turn on, right? The value is going to be 30. So 30. And we're going to shift click again. And we're going to go to the time of 0.2. And the value of this is going to be negative 30. Then we can hit these arrows here to kind of focus that in. And I'm just going to highlight both of these. Right click it and set it to auto so it's a little bit smoother. And that should be all we need to do here. So turn on rotation, we want to change our X rotation. And that should be good. So let me test that real quick. I want to make sure I got the rotation right there. So let's see. Looks like I may have done it backwards. So let's try negative 30 and 30. Just want to make sure that's not backwards. Okay, it's not updating, so let me just undo that. It was probably right. Let's just figure out why it's not updating. Turn lights on, event interact, switch, set relative rotation. Should be working. This is a good opportunity to show you another way to debug blueprints. So I'm going to do that real quick. So if you press play and you come into here and you choose this little drop down here, you can choose a blueprint that you want to kind of debug and watch. This is something I do all the time if I don't know what's happening. So you can watch your blueprint and you can watch the execution flow of what's happening. So if we click on this guy, we can see it's going all the way through the for each loop, but it's not going past that. So let's figure out why it's not going past that. I'm wondering if we just skip over that message, or skip over the message for now. And see. No. Alright, so I believe I figured out the issue here. So, what I think is the issue is that our lights to effect right now, we did not set a default value to this. So it's checking an array that has 0 array elements in it. So we're just going to add a default value into this. So in our lights to effect array, just click the plus button here. We're going to add a default value. You don't have to set anything other than just, you know, adding it to the array. So now if we come in and edit it or interact with it, we can see that turns on. So that was the issue there. And just add a default value here. And that way there's an actual loop body, because without a default value, it's checking a loop body of nothing, so it doesn't go past it. So, yeah. So the next part, we're just going to duplicate this right here. Plug this into our turn off lights. Hook that into the that boolean there, and I'm just going to straighten this up a bit here. Kind of even it out as well. Alright, so now this timeline, we're going to name it turn off. So, just open this guy up, and our first value here, instead of 30, we're going to make this negative 30. And hit those arrows there so we can find where our pins are. And this one right here, we're going to make this one 30. So hit those arrows so we can see. And that should be good. Let's also rename this to turn off rotation. Also just gonna move my player start over here towards the switch so we don't have to walk over there. If we press play and we come in and interact, we can see it animates up, it animates down, and that's working. So now all we gotta do now is edit what we want it to do. You know, with affecting actual lights that are in the world. So we're pretty much done with our light switch blueprint. So we can get rid of this guy. Delete that. Now we need to make our light blueprint. So we're going to have a BP based light blueprint. So let's go ahead and make that. So go into item. And let's make a new folder here for light switches. We're going to make a new folder, light switches. And just move this guy into light switches. And our BP base item here, we're going to create child blueprint class. We're going to call this BP underscore base light. And we can just leave that alone for now. We need to go add that to our data table. So go into our data table, open this guy up. We're going to add our new row. We're going to click F2 to rename it. We're going to call this base light. Item class is going to be BP base light right here. Static mesh, we're not going to have one. Item name, we're going to just going to call this base light. And item description, we're just going to say this is our setup for a base light. Item type, this is going to be light sources. Item name, we're not going to worry about. Usable, we're not going to worry about. Pickup sound, we're not going to worry about. And that's all we need in there. So we can close that guy. We can also close that guy. So let's go back to our blueprint items. Base light. And we're going to come up here on the default here. Go to item name. We're going to make this base light. Compile, save. And the first thing we want to do in here is go in the construction script. So go in here and base lights. Actually, let's go ahead and make these variables. Got a few variables to make. So we're going to add our light type, and we're also going to have another boolean that checks if the light is on or off. So we're going to come in here, we're going to add a variable. We're going to name it light type. This is going to be our light type. Enum, compile, save. And we're going to set this to be instance editable. And we're going to also add another variable that says light on question mark. This one is going to be a boolean. We're also going to make this instance editable. And then we need to actually add our lights on our components up here. So the first one we're going to add is a point light. And by default, I'm just going to set all of these to hidden. So if you come over here to search and search for visibility, I'm going to set that to hidden. So compile, save, click back up on the self up here. Then we're going to add a spotlight. So spotlight. Click on that guy. We're going to also set this guy to be hidden. Compile, save. Then click back up on the self, and we're going to add a rect light. Rect light. Click on that, set it to be hidden. Compile, save. Alright, so now, let's see. So by default, these are, the spotlight and the rect light are aimed that way. I'm just going to rotate these guys by 90 for just our default rotation. I feel like that's makes a little more sense, have them pointing at the ground by default. Alright, so now we're going to go into the construction script. And we have some things to do in here. Oh, actually, let's go ahead and implement our interface as well. So go into class settings, get rid of that visibility search, go to interfaces here, implemented interfaces. We're going to look for our light, BPI lights. You see we get all our interface functions here. And cool. So now I'm done with this guy right here, so I can get rid of that. And we're almost done. We just have a little bit of some logic to add here, and that'll be it. Not that part yet. We have to do this part. So let's see. I think this part's redundant, so we're just gonna go to the light types here. So let's grab our light type enum here, and we're gonna switch. We're gonna look for a switch on E light type. Plug this guy in, and we're just gonna change what we do depending on the light type that we have selected. Also, in our light type here, I'm gonna set our light type variable. I'm gonna set a point light to be the default value. So now if you come in, well, we haven't set up our construction, but yeah. Alright, so the first thing we're gonna do in each one of these switches, we're gonna check if the light is on. So grab our light on boolean here. We're gonna grab a branch, plug this guy in, and we're gonna plug this into point light. And we're just gonna move this guy up here a bit. And if our light is on, we want to grab our point light, and we're just gonna set visibility. We're gonna set new visibility to be on, so set that to be true. Plug this into the true, and I'm just gonna duplicate this set visibility and plug this guy in. We're gonna set new visibility here to be off because we want our spotlight and rect light to be not visible. And that's pretty much the idea of what we're doing here. So we can just straight up just duplicate this 2 more times and just change around the lights that we're affecting. So plug this guy into spotlight right here. I'm also pull this guy. Oh, actually, no, we're not done here because we need to do our light off. So light off, we could just duplicate this guy, plug it into the false, but we're gonna add our point light to this. Yeah, just add the point light to that. That's gonna be the same on all the falses, so we can go ahead and duplicate this guy down here as well. And duplicate it one more time down here. Cool. So we could plug this guy into the rect light here and just move it up a bit. So now we just want to move these lights around. So right now, if our spotlight is on, we don't want our point light to be on. So let's go grab our spotlight, plug this guy in, and plug this point light into our hidden light right here. And then our rect light, if our rect light is on, we don't want our point light to be on. We want our rect light to be on. So plug this guy in, plug your point light in to be hidden. And that should be good. So compile, save, and let's pull our base light into the world. And light on to be true. You can see it turns on. Let's make it a little darker in here so it's easier to see. So we got this guy. We have our point light selected. We can turn that on or off. Spotlight, we can turn that on or off. And rect light, we can turn that on or off. And same as always, if you want to, you know how like normally when you pull a light in, you can change all these settings. You can still do that. You just gotta come down into this menu, and you still get all those settings to, you know, change your attenuation, radius, intensity, and all that. Which we're on rect light, so yeah. See, you can still change all that. You just gotta select it from, you know, your items here. All right, so let's go back to our blueprint. And now we just need to do our event graph, which is going to be our turn off lights and turn on lights. What we're going to do when we do this. And then that'll be it. So that part is done. I can delete that. And the last thing we want to do is, if we're turning off lights, we're just doing the same thing that we're doing here. So we can just copy our this part. Just plug this guy in, or paste it in here. And we're also going to set lights on to be false right here. Just plug this guy in. And the only thing different we're doing is it on our event turn on light. We're gonna do something pretty similar to what we did here. So I'm just gonna copy all of this, and I'm just gonna delete the turn off stuff. I'll just copy the whole thing, and we can just get rid of some of this. So I'm just gonna copy and paste that whole thing in there. We don't need these branches, but we could plug this guy into our turn on lights, and we can delete all of these turn off set visibilities here. And we're just going to plug this into point light. We're going to plug this one into spotlight. And we're going to plug this one into rect light. Plug that guy in. And I'm just going to straighten some of this stuff up. Cool. And I'm gonna go ahead and comment this stuff too. So I'm gonna highlight this, comment it. We're gonna call this turn off lights. And I'm gonna highlight this one, press C to comment it. And we're gonna call this turn on lights. Cool. Alright, so yeah, all we're doing here is when we event turn on lights, which is being called by our switch. So when that message, let me pull that up real quick. So whenever we send that message, so in our construction and when we interact with it, we're sending that turn on, turn off lights message. That message is firing off these events. And when these events fire off, they either turn the lights off or they're going to turn the light on depending on the light type that you have selected. So pretty straightforward. So let's test that. So on our lights, let me actually move this back so we can easily see it from our switch. I'm going to move it a bit closer to our switch here. So if I come here and our lights to effect that we have down here, we choose our BP base light. We can see that turned off because our light switch here, we have lights on to false. So if I turn this guy on, it turns that light on. If I turn it off, it turns it off. And yeah. And as you can see, we still change all of this. It might act a little wonky if you change your light type, but if you just turn this on and off, again, it'll fix. But that is working, so let's test it. So let's save, and then we'll play. And if I come in here and I turn interact with the switch, the light turns off, and I can't see now. Let me just bring in another light so I can still see just enough to be able to show you this. I'm gonna just throw a little light over here in the corner. Alright, so if we interact with it, it turns off, and if I interact with it again, it turns on. And yeah, I can also show you if we add more than one light. Pull this guy down here and click on our switch here and add an array to lights to effect and get our BP base light 2 and affect that one as well. We can turn both of those lights off. Yeah. So it's working, and that's really all we need to do. So in the next one, we're actually gonna do something else with these lights. We're gonna add an effect to make these lights flicker. So like they'll randomly flicker and, you know, just look wonky. You know, add a little bit of that horror element to it. The lights aren't gonna be perfect in our world. They're gonna be janky like they are in horror games. So yeah, we're gonna call it here for this one. If you like the video, hit the like button. If you're new around here, definitely subscribe. If you have any questions, let me know those down in the comments. If you have any tutorials you would like to see, let me know those down in the comments. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.